Earth is losing more than 18 million acres of forests per year, which is equal to about 27 football fields every single minute.
Did you realize the irony in the fact that the Ministry of Defense works more like the Ministry of War? But are we doomed?
Welcome to TEDxYouth at PPSIJC. What I believe is so special about this event is the fact that it is in itself a perfect exemplification of the theme it stands for. What is most definitely a crisis? The fact that holding a physical event is impossible, the technical hurdles surrounding online events, and managing such a big event sitting at one place is now a bundle of opportunities for us. Just imagine, how else would we have been able to bring 7 such extraordinary speakers on the same podium?
With 7 extremely successful and inspirational speakers lined up, these next 3 hours are surely going to provoke your thoughts and kindle the fire of imagination in you.
So, with great pleasure, we'd like to introduce the power-packed hosts for today, Naman Madhva,
Priyanshi Desai,
Jay Aditya Singhvi,
and Ananya Singh, who will take you all on this memorable journey from crisis.
Thank you so much, Krish. Thank you so much, Rishi. Now, whether virtual or in person, no big event in the history of USGS or PPSIJC has ever started without the auspicious lighting of the lamp. So, in order to invoke the blessings of the Almighty, we'd like to call upon our chief guest, Mr. Gautam Modi, office bearers JPES, our principal, our supervisor, and the executive producer of our event to do the honors.
Thank you. We would now like to request our principal, Mrs. Rakhi Mukherjee, to address the audience. She has been an invaluable symbol of inspiration, encouragement, and motivation in these difficult times. She has provided the necessary support to execute all those activities online, which have always been a part of our school culture.
I'm quite inspired to speak to such brilliant inquiring minds who have immense thirst for knowledge, else would not be investing a Sunday attending an event like this. I am Mrs. Rakhi Mukherjee, Principal of Utpal Sangvi Global School and PPSIJC, which runs under the aegis of Juhu Parle Education Society. Here I stand in the Library Resource Center, a place where the student community quench their thirst for knowledge. This is the second year that our students are conducting TEDxYouth PPSIJC, and I thank TED, the parent organization, for giving these young adults a platform to host such events. Everything begins with an idea, which incites curiosity, and then one starts looking for answers to implement the idea. This leads to great inventions and inventors. The pandemic has made us think differently. Amidst this huge crisis, we see a silver lining. And it's this thought that we are building on in this edition of TEDxYouth PPSIJC, from crisis to opportunity. I'm happy to introduce the chief guest for the event, Mr. Gautam Modi, a dynamic entrepreneur, managing director of Modi Motors, dealing with prestigious brands such as Audi and Hyundai, and the Vice President of Juhu Parle Education Society.
Good morning, everybody. On behalf of Juhu Parle Education Society, I am very honored to be able to share this very important event, TEDxYouth at PPSIJC. We at JPES believe in the power of idea to change attitude and thinking process. The theme from crisis to opportunity is chosen reflecting on our experience in the pandemic times. Pandemic is challenging a crisis which led to losses, pain and suffering. But when we see it from the different perspective, technology aided us big time, resolved many of our needs. Many new and free resources are discovered. Zoom, Google Meet are common word in our life today. Hybrid model of learning, which was a dream, become reality. Full-fledged business are successful running in the online model. Opportunities are created in the form of reduced capital expenditures. The physical boundaries vanish and reaching out to the people across is only a matter of a click. Great talents are seen among individuals. Skills of courage, risk-taking, proactiveness, and dynamic thinking, multitasking was explored in a big way. The pandemic has forced us, every individual in whatever capacity, we are to not to be complacent but strive to excel. What better example than having this event on the total virtual platform with a fabulous lineup of dynamic speakers like Dr. Sam Pitroda, the father of India IT revolution, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, India's real estate tycoon, Dr. Mickey Mehta, top health and wellness coaches of the country, Dr. Manoj Dora, top researcher who work at the Turkey-Syria border, Professor Graham Ward from World Top Business School, Mr. Tuhin Menon, savior of vernacular language for online content, and young budding entrepreneur, Chinmay. We are proud of our students who are not only hosting it but seamlessly performing every task assigned to them. I wish them all the best.
Mr. Modi and Mrs. Mukherjee for those invigorating words. Now, before we begin the event, let us all watch a short video about this spectacular initiative for which we have all virtually gathered today, an event that is meant to redefine and revolutionize the world.
Special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
With this, it is now time to commence with the second edition of TEDxYouth at PPSIJC. As you all very well know, we have a rather inspirational and diverse set of individuals who will be joining us today. So without any further ado, we would love to introduce to you our very first speaker.
They say great leaders are the fruit of great teaching. And who better to learn from than our first speaker? We are talking about Dr. Graham Ward. His experience as a professor, leadership consultant, and CEO advisor is grounded in an extensive business career spanning over 22 years in finance, 16 of which working for Goldman Sachs, where he co-led the European equity business. Dr. Graham's expertise is in leadership, high-performance teams, group dynamics, team dysfunction, and change. Privately, he's worked with senior executives at companies such as McKinsey, HSBC, Tesco, and AstraZeneca.
As part of his work, Dr. Ward helps leaders to address behavioral blind spots, to develop strengths, and to eliminate destructive leadership characteristics, thereby enhancing performance through insights that are derived from a combination of the behavioral sciences and action learning. There is much more to this enigmatic figure than meets the eye, ranging from his astute academic qualifications to his published works and to his unique approach towards holistic development. We are all extremely excited to call upon Dr. Ward to share his insights with us.
Now, we refers to my generation, a generation that has allowed this pandemic to emerge and strike people down with sickness, grief, overwhelmed health systems, devastated businesses, and tattered governments. So much for stable systems. And it's not just the virus where we failed you. We polluted the oceans. We paid scant attention to the climate emergency, tore down the rainforest, oversaw the extinction of multiple species, and worst of all, ignored the human rights of women, refugees, and minorities. If ever there was a moment for humanity to capitulate, this might be it. So let this be the moment that goes down in history as the moment seized by our youth. Our global system is wide open, but it won't be for long. We need to learn new ways. So you, the young people, will need to lead with resilience to emerge from this pandemic stronger and be more vital with energy, enthusiasm, and vigor. Be leaders, be resilient. You cannot do one without the other. The young are visionary explorers who have the potential to lead us into a new era. But if you're resilient and you don't lead, you're like a rock in the desert, inert, immovable, useless. If you try to lead without resilience, you will crumble at the first sign of pressure, and there will be lots of pressure. You can choose to lead, you can learn to be resilient. Here's how. Let me share a few stories. When I was 14 years old, I saved my mother's life. We were on a canal boat holiday. For those that don't know, it's a low-powered vessel only meant for use on inert waterways. One evening, we made a near-fatal mistake. We exited the canal and entered the river, which was in full flood. The river was over 1 kilometer wide. As we tried to move across the river laterally, the strength of the current, swollen by recent torrential rain, started to pull our weak little boat downstream. My mother started to panic. I pointed the boat upstream and put the engine on full throttle, which began to belch smoke. My mother yelled at me to continue downstream. I had, however, read the map and was absolutely sure that there was an inlet upstream on the far side of the river. Through the rain, I was convinced I could see a distant green light. I ordered my mother into the cabin and told her to keep quiet in no uncertain terms. I then navigated the boat upstream, nearly breaking the engine in the process. When we finally arrived at Safe Harbor, the lockkeeper came out and asked what on earth I was doing traversing a river in full flood. He told me that just 1 kilometer downstream there was a weir, over which we would almost certainly have spilled, where 10 people on average every year die in boats just like ours. I had decided in that moment to stand up to a parent, an authority, to stand up to a leader, and to fight for what I thought was right. Luckily, on this occasion, I was right. Taking leadership, however, is not easy, but it is a duty. When you have a conviction, you have to stand in the storm for what you believe is right. This is the first rule of leadership. Resilience and feeling good about ourselves go hand in hand. One of the hardest things for us to generate is positive self-regard. And talented people, as I've discovered, are great at beating themselves up. When I was 25, early in my banking career, I worked for a boss who was nothing short of a sociopath. He was an abusive bully who took no prisoners and treated his underlings as if they were worthless. I tolerated this for a while. There came a point, however, when it became too much. His abuse was having a damaging effect on how I felt about myself. I was miserable and I felt oppressed. In the midst of one of his awful tirades, as he belittled me in front of several hundred people, something finally snapped. I reached behind me, took my jacket, and quietly walked out of the building, never to return. Now, in that moment, I was actually devastated. I felt as if I had thrown my whole career away. In retrospect, it was one of the most powerful things I ever did. I had prioritized taking care of myself rather than submitting to a bully. One of the hardest lessons we will learn is to eradicate 3 particularly damaging mindsets. The mindset of complying leads us to please others to the detriment of our well-being. You heard that in my story just now. Second, the mindset of self-protection, trying to be the smartest guy or gal in the room, creates an emotional distance between you and other people. And finally, the mindset of control. Understand that you control practically nothing. If the Stoics were right, all you have control over are your values and the choice of emotional response to how people behave in the world. And that is about it. Most other things are inside your influence, but outside of your control. To truly grow into your most resilient self, you're going to need to let go of these 3 mindsets, and quickly. Very often by doing so, there will be a painful lesson. And normally these lessons come in the grip of something that you did not invite and do not welcome. As the author and filmmaker Sebastian Junger said, virtually every good thing in my life I can trace back to a misfortune. So my feeling is you don't know what's good and what's bad when things happen. You have to wait to find out. So every occurrence in life delivers a lesson. Don't ignore the lessons. By listening to yourself at that moment and seeking out the lessons within, you will build the resilience you are meant to have, which will serve you going forward to become the robust person you need to become. It's called positive reframing, and it's a 30,000-year-old survival mechanism. Use it to your advantage. At 38 years old, by then I had had a stellar career in finance. I'd always wanted to be wealthy since I was a child. I grew up in a poor family with few resources. It seemed the right path and logical. By then I was working for one of the best investment banks in the world. Something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I felt sad and disconnected from myself. Now, as luck would have it, a couple of leadership professors turned up at the bank, and they took a group of us off to Connecticut in the United States, where we sat in a room for 5 days, taking a long, hard look at ourselves. Boy, did I need that. In 5 short days, my misery turned to elation. The miserable caterpillar who had entered the room emerged 5 days later as a butterfly who knew how to spend the rest of his life. How and why did that happen? Well, we were forced to take a look at how our operating system was built, how our values had emerged. Importantly, we had to make the bigger step of talking about it, of socializing it. We were forced to reflect on the most important things. What did we stand for? What made us sad? What made us angry? What were we passionate about? What did we want to become? I'd never asked myself these questions before, and I had certainly never shared them. I discovered, like many people, that I had been sleepwalking through life. A good first lesson, therefore, in leadership is to make sure that you are fully awake, alive to yourself, alive to your potential, not living someone else's life, but living the life that you choose to live. Reflect. Take a long, hard look at your values. Reevaluate them often. Don't imagine that what you want now is what you will want in the rest of your life. It will change, and you need to be flexible and adapt to that change. So to lead others, you first have to lead yourself. And to lead yourself requires vulnerability. Talk about your hopes, your dreams, fears, and doubts. In that interchange is solid gold, and it changes you immeasurably. When I got divorced, I felt as if my entire life had crumbled. I didn't get married to be divorced. I didn't have children to raise them as a single parent, as I had been raised. It was a hard moment. I found a therapist, and I sat in his office for weeks, often in tears. At some point, though, the crying stopped, and the realization arrived that I didn't need to cry anymore, that I needed to act. My defenses were hardening, and my resilience was building. I started to see the shape of a path forward through the gloom. Talking helps. Talking cures it. So not only leadership, but resilience demands self-awareness. There will be hurdles, challenges, pain points, and pressure. Where is it written that you have to figure everything out yourself? Find a coach. Talk to a mentor, a family member, or an old friend who sees you in the full context of your life. High-functioning people are often reluctant to do this. It makes them feel exposed, and that word vulnerability again. Yet there's no shame in exposing your weaknesses. Expressing what you want, who you are, what you fear, and how you feel is a cathartic and important lever on the path to delivering both great leadership and resilience. Don't underestimate the power of talking, and when you have the opportunity to listen, do so with your heart and with both your ears. A few years later, I was sitting by the Aegean with an old friend, a wise old owl from Lebanon. Over a glass of wine, he suddenly said, "You know, I know the meaning of life." Surprised, I said, "Well, I suppose you want me to ask what it is." "Well, I'm going to tell you anyway," he said. "It's two things. Find your tribe and build something. Connect deeply with a group of people and create something that transcends who you are. You can argue with me if you want, but I know that I'm right," he said. Well, I spent many hours thinking about that very simple statement. Because we find so much meaning in deep human connection, and at the same time, life is no party. We are creative, innovative, incredible beings, and our purpose on earth is to use all the agency we can muster to create something that outlasts and outlives us. This is what the best leaders do. As you may have heard, my own journey led me from the world of banking, where my only claim to making a meaningful contribution to society was to pay a lot of taxes, to actually doing something useful. Now, by teaching, coaching, mentoring, advising, I've found ways to help out. Personal meaning comes from being as useful as you can to help others also to make the impact that they envision. Our stay on earth is short, so find a way to be useful and do that. And where possible, do it with people that you like, trust, and admire. To bounce back resiliently from this crisis, we need to find our purpose. The purpose is discovered through a deep understanding of what we value. In a sense, it's your why. It's not a mission. It's not a vision. How do you see yourself living when you are at your most fulfilled? What does that look like day to day, even hour to hour? What activities make you feel so immersed that time stands still? What do you really care about? What do you really stand for? How do you want to live? As you heard, I started life wanting to accumulate as much wealth as possible. And at the halfway stage, I realized that that was not a path to contentment. But that's okay. Knowing your purpose will change and that your life will shift should not deter you from striking out on the path at all. It's a mistake not to set out. It has been strange to find myself as a teacher. I dropped out of school, embarrassed by my grades and with very little to look forward to. But life sometimes goes full circle. My mother was a teacher, and she brought me up with the mantra, never stop learning. I never wanted to teach, yet after taking several different paths, here I am, reading, thinking, learning, and teaching every day of my life. The lessons I take, therefore, from a life fully lived are that leadership is an activity that you must seize, not to have unreal expectations of authority, but to lead whenever you can, however old you are. That means you must remain alert to your experiences and learn from them, accumulating thicker layers of skin as you go, while at the same time remaining sensitive to others. True happiness arises when you create something that transcends you. Start that process today, reorientate yourself as needed, but never stop creating. And finally, turn that creative process into a means of serving others and the world. In short, stay present, build yourself.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, Dr. Ward. Truly, resilience is a trait that can lead you to success or make you succumb to a crisis. And we will surely adopt your methods to become successful leaders of the future. Our next speaker is known to many as the builder extraordinaire. But to most of us who stay in Mumbai, he is known as the man responsible for changing the entire skyline of our city. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about no one else but the billionaire Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. Dr. Hiranandani is the co-founder and managing director of the Hiranandani Group. With the delivery of the landmark project called Hiranandani Gardens, he has left an indelible mark on the construction and real estate sector of our country. The Hiranandani Group, under his astute leadership, has set the benchmark in terms of quality construction, precision engineering, technology and innovation, timely delivery, and holistic development. His success certainly speaks for himself. From being a Forbes-listed top Indian real estate developer to co-founder of India's top real estate company, he is also a philanthropist, a leader, and a revolutionary thinker, with much more to his profile than words can do justice. Without any further delay, we now welcome Dr. Hiranandani to the platform.
Creative minds provide solutions. When you focus on issues and problems which are there for yourself, for your company, for the people in society, then those ideas can turn into wonderful products, wonderful creative minds and creations which we could never imagine that we could possibly do. I'm going to share with you some of these creations which have come across in our companies, in our ideas, in our thoughts, in our lives. And it may help you to also see how you can be creative in so many ideas and convert those desires, those wishes, those dreams into reality. I'm going to share one of those stories, which is my own life. I was a relatively small developer. I'm talking about the year 1981. 1981, I was developing a project in what is known as Lokhandwala complex in Andheri. At that point of time, the complex was very well known and lots of developers, including Mr. Lokhandwala, was developing a complex there. I also developed 11 buildings there, one by one, because I couldn't buy the land for all these buildings together. When I completed each of these buildings, I would look out of the balcony of these buildings and look around. My buildings were very beautiful, but the people who lived in my buildings looked out and they found streets which were narrow, streets which didn't have lights, roads which didn't have stormwater drains. There was no water supply to the buildings which were effective. All this really worried me. So I created an association of all the developers in that area and built the infrastructure at a very low cost. However, I have always dreamt that I should be constructing in an area where everything around me was developed by me. So I would make everything very beautiful. This thought in my mind helped me to keep looking for places. And at that point of time, I saw this land in Powai. It was a quarry land, a land very far away from where development was existing. However, it was very well located in the suburban city of Mumbai, and I had an opportunity to seek that property. Did have certain problems, but which properties don't? And when we took it up, I had a dream which came up from the negative that I saw in Lokhandwala complex. And what was that? That the places around us was not so beautiful. This tract of land was 250 acres, and I dreamt that we would create a project site which, when I looked out of the balcony of that building, they would then have everything else around it beautiful. The roads would be wide and beautiful, the gardens would be beautiful, the infrastructure in that area would consist of schools which were great, and also hospitals which were wonderful, places for children to play and dream and run about. And that is exactly how the Hiranandani Gardens of Powai was developed. But it required a dream, it required a passion, and it required a perseverance in order to convert all these dreams into a reality. And this is how we continue to do. We did the same in the case of Thane, which was our next major project that we took at the Hiranandani estate on Godbandar Road. And again, something which was far away, something which nobody could see or believe, could be converted into a full-fledged township. And slowly but surely, as the city grew to those locations, they became the center of gravity and beautiful addresses with all the thoughts into mind that took place into do. So, all these examples always give us an idea that you've got to dream of a problem, a dream for a solution to a problem, and to see how can we really make it effective for the people to really enjoy all the activities that you can dream of. Solutions which will make the next generation believe into your property. The COVID-19 has brought about a lot of changes in our lives. One of the major things have been challenges. Challenges which gives us a lot of opportunities. Opportunities in the sense that we get solutions of the kind which we never imagined that we could possibly do. One of the things, or several of the things, I'm going to share with you today. One of the things which happened was our construction sites. We have more than 6,000 construction migrant labor living on our sites. And when the COVID situation hit us and there was a lockdown declared of the entire country, there was panic among the workers. And almost 75 to 80% of all these workers went back to their hometown villages in North India and other places and deserted the work sites because there was no work. And now, when we saw the situation, the problem was, what do we do with these poor people? What do we do with these poor people who are without work? But we decided to take care of them. We gave them food twice a day. We sanitized their places. When the vaccination started, we saw to it that they are vaccinated. We provided mobile creches to look after the construction labor, and we took care of all of them. When the first wave settled down and things started coming back to normal, the rest of the construction workers who were in their hometowns, in their villages in North India, all of them came back faster to our sites. And we inquired, how is it that they're coming to us before they go to any other construction sites? And we were surprised to find out that those construction labor who had remained on our sites were in connection on the phone, on the mobile, with the other people who had gone back to their hometowns and realized that our companies were looking after these construction labor. And so they came back quicker, and we were able to restore our construction work much faster than any other company in the neighborhood that we were functioning. So we realized that by giving to society, by giving to the construction labor, things which we otherwise would not have dreamt of doing because there was no work for them to do, we realized that the company benefited by seeing that we got the confidence of all the people and they came back to us very quickly. So these are the things which happen when you actually step out of the box in order to see that you look after the people. Even if at that point of time you have no work, it's nice and proper to take care of them. It benefits the company in the long run. All these things mattered hugely. When we had the next wave of the COVID-19 and there was a lockdown again, this time we only lost 10% of the workers as compared to 75 in the earlier time, because the workmen had confidence in us, in the company, that we would take care of them in every possible way. So all your goodness and activity, which you thought was generosity and giving, actually was beneficial to the company itself over a period of time, because the workmen then get down to work full force. Not only that, they wanted to work overtime in order to make up for the lost time, for the gap which took place during the lockdown period. All these activities which we do makes our thought process in this line quite interesting and different. And the experiences teach us a great lesson of why you should be looking after your people beyond normal ways that we do. There is another experience which I'd like to share with you today, and that is my relationship on the education side. I have been good fortune to be working with 14 colleges in the Mumbai region, 6 schools. We have more than 45,000 students in colleges in Mumbai region and about 15,000 in schools. When the COVID situation came in, we were shaken. And of course, with the lockdown, all the children, all the students had to be at home. They weren't permitted and the schools were not asked to operate. However, when we started going on online, this was a new experience for the institutions, for the pedagogies of learning and teaching, for the students themselves, the kind of concentration and attention required by the students in order to pick up and learn, and certain activities which were extremely difficult to do on an online platform as distinguished from being in the classroom, for example, in laboratories of work that we done. We were surprised. When we got down to it full-fledged, within 30 to 60 days, we were able to put 90% of the students online, of those who were relevant in terms of teaching and learning. The other students who were there had difficulties to get into the online platform simply because they couldn't have the mobile or connectivity or a problem of connectivity which were there. This was unbelievable that we would be able to reach 90% plus of the students and teach them and continue the education. So we continued to be in the leadership position of education during these COVID times. We even conducted online examinations. Of course, some of the students have taken undue advantage of it because they are far more clever in handling these online places. But we are also getting smarter in the colleges by the proctoring systems that we are bringing, and we are being able to catch many of the students who have been mischievous. However, one thing is being done, that the teachers have been able to adapt to the new ideas and new thoughts and the methodologies of teaching and learning. This has benefited us a lot. So, if a student is absent, we are able to record the lectures and they have been available in a library of sorts. In many cases, we are also being able to share this by keeping all these into records, so that in future, when teachers are not available for all the lectures, they can actually use some of the earlier lecturers which have been recorded and kept. All this also has created new platforms, so that the teaching and learning system and pedagogies can continue as lifelong learning. So, in future, when you get into a job and you want to pick up new subjects, the online platform in our education systems can be grown so that the skill learning, unlearning and relearning can be done in a bigger and bigger way. This is what the COVID situation has given us, a new line of opportunity in the education systems to make it. So much so that our Honorable Prime Minister has even declared in June of 2020 the new education policy enabled called NEP 2020. This was done after 35 years. A new education policy has been created and the Prime Minister decided to bring it into force in spite of the fact that there was a lockdown during COVID-19 period of 2020. All this goes to show that we can always use negative situations with positive thoughts and positive direction and convert these challenges, these terrible times, into opportunities of giving new ideas, new thoughts and new direction. The biggest challenge of all, entire situation has been healthcare. Our hospital, the Dr. L. Cheradandani Hospital in Powai, of 240 beds, met these challenges head on. 70% of the hospital or 80% of the hospital was converted into a COVID center, looking after more and more of these patients, either inpatients or outpatients. It was a terrible time when our doctors, nurses and all other healthcare people in the hospital went through terrible times, wearing PPE kits in the beginning, not knowing what are the relevant drugs, because this was a new virus and nobody knew the final solutions to these patterns, and over a period of time taking care of more and more and more of these people. However, it taught us a huge amount of new things. One, when you get challenges of this kind, the doctors and nurses and healthcare providers in the hospitals actually go for it. They know exactly that this is a kind of a wartime situation and need to take care. They stepped out of the box, sacrificed their families, sacrificed everything else, worked round the clock in terms of taking care of the patients in order to see that the patients come out and the survival rate was improved tremendously. All this indicated to us that these challenging times, actually the doctors and the other team were all geared up and ready. Extraordinary work that they did, something beyond the call of duty. Many of them went through tough times because the situation in the PPE and looking overburdened hospitals where beds not available, ICUs not available, and all these things made a change. When we saw the situation of oxygen shortages, the hospital then provided the PSA oxygen generating plant 2, which meant that the hospital could generate 100% of its requirement by producing oxygen on the site in case the supply of oxygen was not available and otherwise would be as a backup plant. All this was something which we realized that in life there are opportunities which can be created by positive imagination, by creation of projects, by doing things when difficulties arise, by getting people and garnering them to solutions for the people, and ultimately for the services of mankind. All these elevates our people, our citizens, our Indians, our doctors, our teachers, our people who work in society to rise up beyond the call of duty in different ways at different times and opportunities. This is something which I love to share with you, because all these stories that we have are life stories of people, of work done so beautiful that we can but salute all the participants in this activity.
Thank you so much, sir. Your experiences have so much for us to learn from. All of us are indeed thankful for the inspiration and the wisdom that you've shared with us today. Coming up next, our third speaker for today is none other than Dr. Manoj Dora. Now, Dr. Dora is an extremely learned individual who has more than a decade of experience in the food and supply chain industry. He is persistently working on a fundamental societal challenge, that is, to reduce food wastage and establish a sustainable and food-secured society. He believes that no one should go to bed with an empty stomach, and this, according to him, is only achievable if we manage our resources responsibly. He is the founder of the Circular Food Forum at the Brunel University in London, which aims to reduce food wastage and ensure food security through a circular economy model. He has been involved in several capacity building initiatives that focus solely on providing global food security. He has also been published extensively and has spoken at several reputed forums such as TEDx Ghent and the University of Cambridge. Dr. Dora, this virtual stage is now all yours for the taking.
Suggest that this pandemic is a short-term interruptions in a long... Hello. History suggests that this pandemic is a short-term interruptions in a long-term improvement in life expectancy, amazing innovations, and incredible facilities. In 1800, it was about 30 years, and by 2019, global life expectancy improved to 73 years. This has been the single most important historical change in last 200 years. So friends, this too shall pass. But this ongoing pandemic has also given us an incredible opportunity to look back, to think, to rebuild our current food system. Why food? Food is our fuel. Food is nourishment. Food is our life source. Food also link all the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So let's look at how is our current food system works. So food system is how we produce, how we distribute, and how we consume. To show you these three elements, produce, distribute, and consume, I would like to share a few startling figures with you. More than 13 million kids in the United States go to school hungry. That is 1 in 6 child go to school without a breakfast. Take a moment. Let this sink in. Be that child. Feel that hunger. Do you know 1 in 9 persons suffer severe hunger worldwide? India hosts a quarter of global hunger burden. 4 out of 10 children in India are not meeting their full potential because of chronic undernutrition. According to Niti Aayog, 1 in 4 children in India are stunted, while 40% of the children between the age of 1 to 4 are anemic. The irony is vivid. On the one hand, data suggest that India's hunger and malnutrition looks insurmountable. Yet, at the same time, we witness massive rotting of grains in stores and daily food waste of Himalayan proportions. Every day, we throw away enough food to guess what? Greatly dwarf the mass of the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa. As we grapple with the simultaneous challenge of food waste and hungry stomach, we also grapple with the fact that food waste is responsible for 8% of the world's greenhouse gas emission. Besides economic and environmental impact, our current food system practice have major social impact. For example, according to World Health Organization, in Europe, more than 50% of the people are either obese or overweight. Think about it. According to a CDC report, farming or agriculture contribute to one of the highest suicide rates among all professions. Think about it. Now, let's consider the pandemic and our food system. The pandemic has exposed the hidden fault lines in our global food system, especially how millions were propelled into hunger. Even before the pandemic, more than 113 million people across 53 countries, which is almost the size of Russia's entire population, experienced acute hunger, requiring urgent food and nutrition and livelihood assistance. Imagine that the number would have become when COVID-19 struck the world. According to Food Foundation, one charity in the UK, 1.9 million Britons reported not eating for a whole day because they had no money or no access to food during the lockdown. Also, more than 300 million children missed out on school meals because of the school closure. Let's think about it. So how do we currently produce? Let me show you with this few facts. These two photos are from the Ivory Coast rainforest. See the difference that caused because of cocoa plantations, and it propelled deforestation. Mindless and intensive expansion of farming is causing severe damage to our food system. The earth is losing more than 18 million acres of forest per year, equal to about 27 football fields every minute. Another striking photo from NASA's GRACE satellite measured the depletion of groundwater in northwestern India between 2002 to 2008. This is an alarming low level, and we are heading towards a man-made disaster. Here is another example how we use our limited resources. Livestock use 83% of all the farmland, yet provide only 18% of all our calorie needs, while generating huge amount of toxic greenhouse gases. Now consider wasteful processing. I work very closely with the food processor. Let me take you through the darker side of food processing. These are Belgian chocolates, utterly delicious and unfortunately heading towards the landfill because they are rejected by a supermarket as they did not meet their specification. This is a scene from a famous bakery. All of these perfectly edible parts of bread are going to waste just because you and I don't like the sides of the bread. Here is a picture of one of the world's largest fruits and vegetable processor. An estimate shows that their amount of waste per year is equivalent to the price of 2 Ferraris. How do we store and distribute our food? In 1943, Professor William Kling estimated 20 to 30% of the food are wasted just because how we store and distribute them. Today, after 78 years, even with so many technological and managerial advancement, we are still at the similar level of food wastage. Lack of transport infrastructure, storage infrastructure, poor supply chain management is making our food system inefficient. To give a specific example, around 68% of all the storage capacity in India is located in just 5 states. So in India, a nation trying to feed one of the greatest national population on earth, 2/3 of all food storage is found in only 5 of the nation's 36 states and union territories. Here is an example of how value is shared in the chocolate supply chain. From bean to chocolate bar, the cocoa supply chain is a bittersweet one. The end product is something we all love, but it comes with a significant hidden human cost. Let me show you what a cocoa farmer gets in return. Out of $100, a retailer takes 35, manufacturer takes 40, a processor takes 10, a trader takes 10, and the remaining, a mere 5, goes to the farmer. How do we consume? This is a photo from recent Euro Cup where Ronaldo urged everyone to drink more water. We are increasingly eating pre-packaged, ultra-processed food with high fats and sugar and salt. Enticing appeal from the large companies and endorsement by celebrities are significantly impacting our eating habits, especially those of children. In Mexico, for example, sugary snacks have been prompted by telling us they alleviate boredom and can be eaten during the video calls. A recent study published in Lancet shows bad diets are responsible for more death than smoking. Moreover, diet partly responsible for the difference in COVID death rate in a recent study. So we certainly need to rethink about how we eat and what we eat. Now we have seen how do we produce, how do we distribute, and how do we consume. At this critical juncture, it is necessary to answer one important question. How do we build a better food system? There is a need for a paradigm shift in our current approach. We have currently a linear model. We take, make, use, and dispose. We have a linear model of producing, distributing, and consuming. We need to move from the linear model to a circular model where we can make use of remake, recycle, reuse, and redistribute. The circular economy of food mimics actually the natural system of regeneration of the waste that does not exist, but is instead feedstock to another cycle. Let me share a few incredible stories of human resilience, innovation, and entrepreneurial thinking during this pandemic that are changing our food system. A small village in Uganda, the main product is bananas. The pandemic disrupted their market, leading to severe waste. Here comes the innovation. Women in the community collected bananas and using a very simple process, fermenting, boiling, and bottling, they made banana wine for local consumers. Fantastic example of circular economy model that helped the community, their livelihood, and empowered the women there. Now, let's go to one of Turkey's olive oil processing companies. A young local entrepreneur saw an opportunity in the byproduct of olive, the dry olive skin. The young man turned the waste into wealth by making olive soap, tapping the market when the demand for hygiene product is high. Remember, wash your hands often. I also have something innovative and revolutionary to share from where I stay, England. Here is an app called Food Share, an incredible tool that allows members of the community to post food that they are willing to share with others. A phenomenal tool that allows us to connect, to unite, to help one another, helping the needy secure food during lockdown and also prevent incredible amount of food waste. So here are some of the interesting examples how we can make that change. Friends, Albert Einstein said, in the midst of every crisis lies a great opportunity. This is our opportunity to build a better, more sustainable and resilient food system. Thank you.
That was a brilliant presentation, Dr. Manoj. Thank you for throwing light on how flawed our global food system is and how we can solve this issue. We are certain that with people like you, we'll be able to overcome such challenges, and as you said, this too shall pass.
While we all absorb those stimulating words of wisdom, we would like to lend this prestigious stage to the students of PPSIJC to showcase their varied talents.
Last year's lockdown escalated the stigma that surrounds mental illnesses. Through her compelling piece, Malishka hopes to shed light on what it is like to be living with depression and to reassure these warriors that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
You know how it's like, struggling to get out of bed, but your bed feels like nothing more than a magnet saying stay. What's the point of doing anything anyway? You're numb to everything and everyone. Someone brings home your favorite cheesecake, you take a bite and you say you're done. My mind is like a sheet of paper, I think to myself. Blank, white, blank, blank. Actually, my feelings have lost color. Is it a white or a glaring, frightening black? Saying there is no escaping this. Nothing can help. Not friends, not self-care kits. Rock bottom must be your home. Let me know when you're done with this poem because I'm tired. I'm tired of my nights and days and all my moments melting away into one big pot of daily dismay. I'm sorry, I'd rather just stay at home. When you'd rather just be able to brush your teeth without it feeling like a month of chores. Can't take this anymore. I can't take this anymore. I had to go buy groceries on Sunday, and you see, buying groceries isn't that high on my list of priorities. I'd rather just learn to be happy for a day or two, or at least till I stop being so sappy. But Malishka, you have to go out of the house. So I do. I peel my jeans up my legs and I'm ready to go buy some eggs. And I'm tired already. I return home with dinner for today. Mashed potatoes and vegetables sauteed. I really like it, I won't lie. At least stepping out of home means I tried. Like I tried asking for help last week, but choked on my words and my eyes began to leak. I hope my parents see the lines I trace on my wrist. I hope to see the bloody crescents that form inside my fist. And then they do. They uncurl my fists, ask me questions I don't want to answer. My therapist is asking about myself. Isn't it just enough to say I'm a dancer? I wanted this for so long, yet I'm not able to let my guard down. I suddenly start crying and I really hate the sound. They make me look at the mirror a lot. So eventually, I learn to appreciate the help I've got. It's still hard trying to break out of old habits. They make me choose from a color palette. Red for my anger, deep blue for my sadness, brown for the silliness, and yellow for my happiness. I want red because I want my screams to echo, but instead I just choose yellow. Some days I still sink back into my old rut of blankets and tears. They did tell me progress isn't linear. So maybe I just comb my hair back for today. Tomorrow I'll just bathe and even that will be okay. I realize that even if my days aren't filled with big skies and fluff, I'm still going to be good enough. I won't have to force myself to be tough, and I'm still going to be good enough. Some days may be extra rough, but I'm still going to be good enough. I'll say I'm okay and it won't be a bluff, and I will be good enough.
Malishka, that was indeed moving, and I believe it has stirred the emotions of the audience. Music, dance, and art capture the essence of the soul that words fail to capture. Immerse yourself in our next act as these three forms seamlessly intertwine to create a magical concoction of cultures, colors, and chords. Presenting Yuvraj playing the ukulele, Hiya creating an abstract painting, and Tara performing Kathak to the soulful beats of Ore Piya from the movie Aaja Nachle.
This was indeed a wonderful fusion of the three distinct art forms. Next in line of powerful thinkers is Dr. Sam Pitroda, an internationally respected development thinker, policymaker, inventor, and entrepreneur who has spent over 55 years in telecom developments. He is credited with having laid the foundation of India's technology and telecommunications revolution in the 1980s. For someone like him, no mountain is too high to climb, as Dr. Pitroda has also been a leading campaigner to help bridge the global digital divide. He founded WorldTel in London in the mid-1990s to help privatize telecom in developing countries.
Now, we're all very well aware of electronic diaries and mobile wallets. What we may not know is that it is Dr. Pitroda who invented these items back in 1974 and 1996. He is also responsible for setting up CSAM Incorporated, a company that was later acquired by MasterCard back in 2013. He is the founder, he is an investor, and he is a chairman of 6 startups and 5 non-profit foundations. He holds over 100 patents and has been published and has lectured around the globe. Dr. Pitroda's first biography was published back in 1992, and in 2015, Penguin Books published his autobiography titled Dreaming Big. Ladies and gentlemen, here's presenting to you Dr. Sam Pitroda.
I was born in 1942 in a small little tribal village during British Raj in India. About the same time, our world was designed for the last time. That design was led by US and small group of countries, which ultimately gave birth to UN in New York, World Bank, IMF in Washington, D.C., WHO, WTO, and many other institutions. Along with it, it gave birth to measurements like GDP, GNP, per capita income, balance of payment, trade deficit. Then our world was bipolar. On one hand, you had US, and the other hand, you had Soviet Union. US model was based on democracy, human rights, capitalism, consumption, and military. Soviet Union followed exactly opposite in most of the areas, where rather than democracy, they had central political party as the main authority. Capitalism was to them more about state-controlled economy. Consumption was controlled by the state, but they were equally focused on military. Lots of things have happened in the last 75 years after the design was put in place. This design has done very well. It has served us well. Unfortunately, in the last 75 years, we have not created one major global institution of the type we created then. In the last 75 years, several tipping points could be defined, which I believe had huge impact on the design. Now, I'm sure different people have different views on this. From my perspective, the first tipping point was decolonization of the world. Mahatma Gandhi led effort in India, decolonize the entire world in a very short period of time. Then came rise of China. No one ever thought China will rise the way China has been able to rise in the last 30 years. Then fall of Soviet Union, fall of Berlin Wall, 9/11, which I believe was a response to a unipolar world. Then rise of technology. Transistor was born after I was born, literally 5 years after, in 1947. transistor has really changed the whole consumer market. Transistor gave us radios, televisions, telephones, finally internet and hyperconnectivity. To me, hyperconnectivity is the key to redesign the world. Hyperconnectivity is all about connections. It is about content. It is about context. And hyperconnectivity also democratizes information, decentralizes implementation, and demonetizes services. For the first time in the human history, we are all connected. All 7.8 billion people are essentially connected. What does this connectivity mean? Unfortunately, we use this connectivity to do the same things we have been doing in the past. Little better, little cheaper, little faster. The key question is, how do we use connectivity going forward to take humanity to the next level? How do we use this connectivity to do things we have never done before? Then, technology, along with being pervasive, has created a lot of inequality. Rich have become richer, we have created more billionaires, and poor have remained poor. The gap between rich and poor have increased substantially. We all know that 1% of the people control more than 50% of the wealth in this world. Then finally, COVID-19. COVID-19 convinced us that we are all interconnected, interwoven, interdependent. What happens in one place of the world affects everybody. No one ever thought that one little virus in middle of nowhere will put entire world to halt. During COVID-19, I was essentially in self-quarantine at home in Chicago for 14 months. That's the time I decided to think deeply about redesigning the world. Hyperconnectivity and COVID-19 convinced me that it is time to reflect, review, repurpose, and redesign our world to take humanity to the next level. While thinking about connectivity and COVID-19, I realized that there are only two things that matter in life: planet and people. Planet doesn't need us, we need planet. So first we must take care of planet, which include air we breathe, water we drink, birds and bees and animals, forest, mountains, ocean, rivers. I believe that technology has really, to some extent, affected our environment substantially. I believe planet is in pain because we have really destroyed our environment. You have seen the talks on global warming all over the world, but nothing, and absolutely nothing much has happened in the last 20 years. Then people. At the end of the day, people matter. And they are all equal. They all have same capabilities. They all came from same place. Then why have all these differences between rich and poor, urban, rural, educated, uneducated? Differences because of race, religion. I think if we focus on these two, we can definitely redesign the world in a very different way. So when I started thinking about all of these things, I realized that we need to really take democracy to inclusion. We need to take human rights to human needs. Mainly because I realized that today there are two visions. One is the American vision, which is based on the old design and continue this process of capitalism, democracy, consumption, all that. And another one is a new vision by Chinese, which is based on Belt and Road Initiative. A different kind of political system, different kind of economy. Unfortunately, both of these visions are rooted in command and control, rooted in what is good for China, what is good for America. What we really need today is a third vision of the world. Vision that is rooted in communication, coordination, collaboration, co-creation, and cooperation. Vision that really network a group of nations with respect for each other to take humanity to the next level. And that's where I feel that the 5 old pillars, which were very solid, needs to be taken to the next level. We need an evolution and not a revolution while redesigning the world. So the first is to really take democracy to inclusion, take human rights to human needs, because today we can produce anything. Unfortunately, we wind up producing for people who can only afford to buy and not for people who need it. I have always said for the last 35 years that the best brains in the world are busy solving problems of the rich, who really don't have problems to solve. As a result, problems of the poor don't get the right talent. We can produce anything today. We live in an economy of surplus and not economy of scarcity. But we still think in terms of economy of scarcity. We want to control everybody's resources as opposed to share resources. And then we really need new economy. Capitalism hasn't done well for everybody. Top-down effect hasn't worked. Things don't percolate down. And as a result, lots of people have remained poor. So capitalism has to be redone, redefined, so that wealth distribution is a little more equitable. What it means is bottom-up development, focus on localization, while promoting globalization as well. The recent globalization was driven by optimizing profit, or to optimize profit. I think there is more to life than optimizing profit. We need to optimize human capacity, environment. And when you look at that, the entire economic activity changes substantially. We need to focus on small enterprises. We need to network them to scale. And we really need to focus on affordability, scalability, and sustainability. That brings me to consumption. We cannot go on consuming the way we have been consuming. It is time to focus on conservation and sustainability. You know, during Corona crisis, while I was locked up at home, I started looking at all of the possessions I have. And I started questioning, is it really necessary for me to have all of these things that I have accumulated? Does it really make me happy? Should I really have 500, 700 ties? And I think that brought to my attention that some people tend to consume too much unnecessarily, and there are a large number of people who have nothing. And we need a little bit of balance. And finally, military. We need to focus on non-violence. I know it's difficult. Today we spend $2 trillion a year on military. So on one hand, the last design has done well in improving longevity, decreasing infant mortality, democratizing technology, removing large number of people from poverty. But at the same time, we haven't solved key problems in the world related to environmental blunders, poverty, hunger, terror, violence. Violence begins at home. And we have to focus on non-violence. When I read about all the murders that go on in Chicago during summer, I wonder why. In a highly educated country like America, we find that largest number of people percentage-wise are in prison. Does it make sense to build more prisons to equip our police with better tools and machine guns? So these are the questions that led me to think about redesigning the world. I know it can be done. It is not utopian. We have to make up our mind that do we believe in improving our planet and improving quality of life of everyone or not? Are we being selfish? I have outlined 10 steps that we need to really follow to redesign the world. First and foremost is recognize the power of hyperconnectivity. Second, focus on improving our environment and planet. Third, strengthen democracies everywhere. Democracies are not inclusive. In the US we have Black Lives Matter. In India we have caste system. People get separated because of religion. We need to build our institutions, strengthen civil society. Then we need to really change the economy everywhere. We need to create new economy to really lift people from bottom of the pyramid to improve their quality of life. We also need scientific temper, more science, more innovation, more creativity to come up with better products and services to improve health, education, infrastructure, energy, environment. For this, we need better leaders. Leaders today are parochial, centered on their own constituencies, and we need leaders with global perspective. All our systems are very complex systems, and these complex systems require someone to think very differently. We don't have the kind of leaders this world needs to really take world to the next level. We also need innovations, support of media. We need innovations in education, innovations in health, innovations in governance, innovations in organizational architecture. Because all our organizations are based on architecture developed 75 years ago in vertical silos. We need networking. We also need to reassess our existing institutions and create new global institutions. We need to create many new global institutions and reform UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, WHO, and all others. At some point in time, I believe we need global constitution. We also need some format for global governance. And for all of this, we need new conversation. All I can do is urge all of us to begin new conversation on redesigning the world. This is a unique opportunity for mankind at the time of rise of hyperconnectivity and corona crisis to really think through and see how we can take humanity to the next level. I am very excited about the opportunity. I believe young people will rise to the occasion, start debate discussions, generate enough force from ground up to bring about generational change. Unfortunately, those who are in position of power and influence have no need to change. They are already milking the system. And those who have need to change have no voice in the system. So many of us will have to give that voice to the people who have not been able to give voice. I am very optimistic. I don't think it is utopian dream to redesign the world. I think it can be done. It has to be done, but it can only be done by the next generation. I hope together we can begin a new conversation on redesign.
Those are some marvelous suggestions, Dr. Pitroda. I particularly love the part about focusing on human needs instead of human rights. And I agree with you when you say that hyperconnectivity will be paramount in revolutionizing how the world works. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Mr. Tuhin Menon. Mr. Menon graduated from the New York University with a dual degree in media studies and economics. He has held several senior management positions in companies like BBC Worldwide and Walt Disney. Now, this is before he joined the co-founding team of a media tech startup called Culture Machine. Mr. Menon subsequently served as president of the company, overseeing its growth into one of South Asia's largest digital media companies. In 2019, Mr. Tuhin co-founded AsiaVille, a multilingual infotainment and education-focused digital venture, with the core mission of empowering the next 1 billion internet users consuming content natively in their local languages. Putting an end to the wait for his rather interesting talk, we are happy to call on Mr. Tuhin Menon.
Experiencing some part of the cataclysm we've all grown up hearing about and probably experiencing some part of the cataclysmic events that have shaped the course of human history. The Black Plague, the Spanish flu, 2 successive world wars, even the world financial crisis of 2007-2008. You probably know where this is going, but when put in the context of some of history's darkest phases, it does feel like COVID-19 merits a serious mention. The intention, of course, is not to compare natural or man-made disasters, all of which take an excruciating toll on human life, but to contextualize the gravity of what we are all collectively living through. Calling it a crisis even may just be an understatement. The economic toll of this pandemic has been devastating, upending several industries, jobs, and livelihoods. And the media has been no exception. The novel dichotomy of having captive audiences at home, consuming vast amounts of content, while at the same time dealing with the problems of content generation and declining ad revenue, has thrown up a thorny dilemma that all media companies nationally have had to grapple with. And yet, with all of these disasters playing out on a global scale, with all the upheaval that has shaken us to our foundations, there is also the unlikely story of opportunity, which I'd like to tell you a little bit about through the prism of our just over 2-year-old startup, AsiaVille. Empowering the next billion internet users that are coming online in India with local language, infotainment, and education content. Sounds like a lofty goal, but we really do think it's one worth addressing head on. How did we come upon this immodest goal? Well, here's a bit on me for further context. I graduated in 2005 from NYU, went on to work the corporate life for about 8 years, first with the BBC in New York, and then with Disney in India, always with a focus on the digital media sector. I was lucky, I think, to have a good vantage point from which to view how the industry was evolving. From its early days when advertising was just about becoming viable, to the explosion of revenue models ranging from programmatic to affiliate to subscription and frankly, everything in between. And of course, a zillion content providers popping up to fulfill the unquenchable collective thirst of large parts of the world moving online. Access to the internet remains uneven, depending on which country one is looking at. However, more people globally have access to information and knowledge through the internet than ever before. And that, on balance, is a good thing. Yet one point that always kind of stood out to me, honing in on the Indian context now in particular, is the huge asymmetry in how the economics of online content consumption has been evolving. Through my role with Culture Machine, the startup I joined after my Disney stint, I got a ringside view of how the digital media landscape was actually shaping up in India. And what we witnessed there was quite astounding. While advertisers were still largely favoring the English language as far as where brand monies were being spent, the real boom in viewership, engagement, and pretty much any metric you could think of was unquestionably coming from local language publishers and content creators. This realization led us to launch 2 successful digital media brands in the South back then. But there was more to be done in this space. Take a look at these graphs from a pivotal KPMG Google study that was done a few years back. The underlying trends are likely to be even more pronounced now. What this reveals is that English language internet users were projected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 3%, as against a projected compound annual growth rate of 18% for vernacular language users. It also projected that 90% of internet users over the next 5 years would be vernacular language users. In other words, 9 out of 10 new internet users are likely to be vernacular first. A more recent study by IAMAI and Kantar, put out last year, estimated that internet usage in rural India is growing 3 times faster than internet usage in urban India. 13% for rural India, as opposed to just 4% for urban India in the last year alone. The overall internet population in India is now racing towards 700 million, but the internet penetration still stands at only about 45%. What does this tell us? The remaining percentage of the population likely to come online in this decade is sure to snowball this trend of vernacular-first content consumption. So it's clear that in a country that speaks 22 languages officially, with way over 1,600 dialects, we are only at the tip of the iceberg. With plummeting data costs and increasing bandwidths, the much talked about next billion, factoring in population growth as well, will be coming online from non-metropolitan areas, or what are more conventionally called Tier 2, 3, 4 cities. And it's almost certain that the vast majority of them would be vernacular language first internet users. At our startup, we have seen these trends play out pretty dramatically over the past 2+ years. The sheer depth of audiences consuming content in Tamil, Malayalam, and Hindi, the 3 languages we currently serve with original content in video, audio, and text formats, has been increasing exponentially year on year. And through the peak of the first wave of COVID last year, we began to notice something pretty incredible. A surge in viewers thirsty for factual, verifiable information on this deadly, and at that time still relatively unknown virus. From explainers breaking down the different mutations of the virus, to articles providing clear guidelines on how to respond to them, to podcast profiles of courageous COVID warriors that continue to battle on the front lines, we saw viewers, readers, and listeners engaging with our content in their local language like never before. What's more, we saw a huge surge in community-based activity. People forming Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram groups, sharing resources and up-to-the-minute verifiable information. While the unavoidable strand of WhatsApp university messages continued unabated to spread tomes of fake news and misinformation, we also saw a huge amount of interest in the facts, which quickly became, and of course continues to be, the need of the times. And thus, from the bowels of the worst pandemic we've seen in our lifetime, emerged an opportunity. It was like an entire invisible army was rising up against the virus online through a disparate but strong and widespread community of local language users, fighting it back with the strongest tool in their combined arsenal: knowledge. This kind of a coordinated effort would not have been possible in the internet era of, say, the early 2000s, where English remained the lingua franca online and access remained restricted to metropolitan cities. COVID-19 has decimated communities and uprooted lives, but it has also bonded people together in a way no disaster has done previously, owing largely to the democratization of the internet across multiple languages, economic, and social strata. The worst health crisis that we have lived through gave rise to an opportunity for us to unite and connect in meaningful ways. Would this have happened organically? Worth a thought, isn't it? We seized this opportunity to double down on our information and knowledge-based approach and started bringing content to our largely millennial audiences in a range of entertaining and exciting formats. The crisis allowed us to rethink our strategy and hone in on the theme of empowerment, which today is our central driving force. providing context and the tools necessary to thrive in a world which is rife with misinformation and scarce resource availability, particularly in the vernacular language milieu, is a problem that needs to be addressed urgently, and one that we've taken on. We find ourselves at an opportune time in history to address this challenge as we continue to find ways to emerge from the COVID storm and build a strong foundation for times to come. The dissemination of knowledge and information carried through the veins of exploding wireless and broadband networks is not a secular trend across all spheres of activity. Take education, for instance. While we've borne witness to the exciting surge in the edtech sector owing to the boom in online learning during these times, what one doesn't hear about as much is the vast majority of students that are left out of this education revolution. One salient feature of the education sector overall has been the major disparity between the number of CBSE and ICSE schools on the one hand and the number of state board schools, which are largely government-run, on the other. While the state board schools outnumber their national board counterparts several times over, we still find a majority of e-learning platforms focused more on the national boards. There seems to be a large gap in the quality of online education for state board schools and government-run schools nationally. According to UNICEF, over 25 crore Indian children have been negatively impacted by the closure of schools through this COVID period. At the height of the first COVID wave last year, we saw an opportunity to drive impact at scale, fitting within our overall theme of empowerment. Our core focus remains on the local language milieu, geared primarily towards curricular learning and imparting local language vocational skills to students of all ages. At a time when schools remain closed owing to the pandemic, the need for quality education delivered online has never been felt more acutely. There remain, of course, significant challenges in access to the internet, which hamper the full potential of online learning from being realized. However, we've embarked on our journey to try and solve this problem at a ground level, starting in the state of Kerala. And the results so far have been nothing but encouraging. The new education policy places emphasis on learning and skill development in local languages. These are clearly areas that need to be addressed with some urgency. The acceleration of online learning in the wake of the current crisis has, in a sense, served to exacerbate the dire need for the benefits of this learning to be distributed evenly across all social, regional, and linguistic cohorts. This may not have been as apparent in the normal course of events, but COVID has thrown a spotlight on this glaring divide, and with that comes an opportunity. So there it is. Asiaville was born a little over 2 years ago. A global pandemic of epic proportions came upon us over a year ago, and we adapted. What's more, we found opportunities. Empowering the next generation of internet users in the vernacular languages through infotainment and education became our North Star. And we are trudging on towards it, battling all the headwinds that startups inevitably face, particularly so at these times. You know, the idea of an invisible army is a captivating one. Not the troll army that anonymity on the internet breeds, but an invisible army that coalesces around the core pillars of education, knowledge, and empowerment. And in humanity's darkest hour, becomes an unmitigated force for positive change. This is what we have witnessed through the course of this pandemic. A crisis of such epic proportions wreaks havoc on a scale that is hard to comprehend. But it also does something else along with that. It throws up a mirror and allows us to introspect on systems that are inherently flawed or that have come undone over time. And therein lie potential opportunities. My intention with this talk is not in any way to be reductionist about the link between crisis and opportunity. There are formidable challenges involved with any opportunity, and the ones that I've outlined here in particular, at times like these, are anything but straightforward. But defining them clearly help us to set a North Star that we can all collectively strive towards And ultimately, that's perhaps what one needs to get through the crisis as well. That brings me to the obligatory famous person quote. Winston Churchill once said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." While the ongoing pandemic has been devastating in its impact across the globe, and no part of it can be characterized as good, it has taught me something quite fundamental. A crisis can breed opportunity, and sometimes it must. Thank you.
Mr. Menon, you found a crisis, saw an opportunity, and acted on it. That's what we all need to embed in our lives, and your work is enough inspiration for us to do so.
I wish I didn't have to wake up at 7 a.m. for school. I wish I didn't have to wear uncomfortable school pants, and I wish I didn't have to carry that heavy school bag up a flight of steps. Doesn't this sound like something we've all hoped for? Well, guess what? Our wishes did come true last year. The stringent lockdown had us all caged in our homes, unable to leave even for school. And while TikTok dances and creamy dalgona coffee kept us busy, we got tired of them in under 3 months. We missed school, our teachers, our friends, and the time we spent with them. Next up, we have a short act where we will see how yearning for something actually came true but left us with regret in the end.
Have you ever wished for something that hard that it actually came true? But then later you regret it? Many a times, right? But there is one time that we all can relate to. So, let's see. So many assignments and projects, and just one me and one day to finish them. Sometimes I feel like school really wants to succumb me. I wish I get a year's vacation, a complete holiday, going nowhere, just sitting on my bed with my cozy blanket and one cup of coffee by my side. The perfect life. Jia, you're just daydreaming, as if that's going to actually happen. Wow, I never thought my wishes would come true that fast. Now is the time to watch all my favorite series. Good morning, miss. Sorry, miss, I cannot keep my camera on. Miss, actually, I have a lot of network issues. Hello? Hello, miss? Miss, I cannot hear you. Miss, can I rejoin? Hello, miss? Okay, miss, bye, miss. I can sleep now. Yaar, what is this dalgona falgona? Still not yet it is done. It'll rip my hands off. My stomach has also come out. At least climbing those 4 floors of our school used to keep this mister inside. Not working at home and not trying to eat junk food are just excuses. The main reason I want to go out is that I want to go to school very badly. I miss my friends a lot. I miss spending time with them in the canteen and having vada paos with that extra tikha chutney. I miss my teachers. And yes,
Yes, Jia, we can definitely relate to what you have shared with us. Every melody has its own heart, and every heart has its own melody. Nothing helps connect minds and souls better than music, for music is beyond borders and languages. Now we have Ahika performing a symphonic song by the renowned band Coldplay, namely Yellow. I'm sure that you've heard of it before. So now let's enjoy Ahika's take on this already mesmerizing song.
That was indeed a wonderful music performance. Moving on, our next speaker for today, Ms. Chinmayi Kusnur, has managed in these challenging times to not only build her own venture from ground zero, but has also ensured that it turns into a colossal success as she received a UN affiliated award for the same. An alumnus of USGS and PPSIJC, Chinmayi is currently studying interactive arts and technology at the Simon Fraser University in Canada. With her astute business sense, Chinmayi saw an opportunity that presented itself in the wake of the pandemic in the form of a shortage of masks, a high unemployment in the khadi manufacturing industry, but more importantly, a deeply forgotten Swadeshi spirit. She sprang into action with her venture to serve her country through what she calls khadi sustainability. Now, I won't spend any more time in talking about this altruistic venture because these words are best heard from the creator herself.
March 2020, a month that we will surely March 2020, a month that we will surely never forget for years. Did you ever imagine that a virus with a diameter of around 100 nanometers will take over the whole world one day? Did you, even in your wildest dreams, consider schools to be equivalent to a computer? None of us ever thought at the beginning of 2020 what we were getting into. And now COVID-19 has changed our lives to an unimaginable extent. March 2020, just like for everyone else, was a life-changing month for me too. Mid-March, I got a call from my best friend in New York and she said that she's flying back to Mumbai and she'll be taking all of her classes online now. I was shocked. I couldn't imagine what could bring a student back to their home country in the middle of a semester. And 2 days later, my university also officially announced the same thing, that they're shifting all of their classes online and international students can go back home if they wish to. My friend and I then took the next available flight to Mumbai. I had barely 30 hours to pack all my belongings lying in the dorm room, figure where I'll keep my extra luggage, and grasp everything that's happening around me. All of this seemed so hard and I felt like I was in a movie. Amidst all of that, I had to get a mask for the safety of my travel. I didn't know where to get one because before this we never needed one. My friend and I went to a few stores around, even the health department of our university, but masks weren't available anywhere. That's where I saw a huge rise in demand of masks, but there was an acute shortage of supply of it. This is where the crisis of today's talk comes into picture. Thankfully, somehow my friend managed to arrange for a few surgical masks just before our flight. That's when I realized that Canada, being a first world country, has a shortage of masks, then for sure India will face a similar problem. We are 1.3 billion people in this country and we already have so many issues like poverty, hunger, pollution, and sadly the list can go on. And what could go worse? COVID was another problem to add to that list. Now, comparing the population densities of the two countries, it was very evident that COVID is going to spread a lot more in India than in Canada. So masks were very important for everyone's safety. Anyway, after coming back, one day randomly at the dinner table, my parents and I spoke about my native, Dharwad in North Karnataka. My father spoke about the Khadi Association there and how my ancestors were a part of it. And that's when an incredible idea struck our minds to make masks out of Khadi. It was an opportunity lurking around the dire crisis of this deadly pandemic. Now, why is Khadi so beneficial for us in a pandemic? Firstly, it is highly eco-friendly and sustainable. It soaks only 3 liters of water as compared to other cotton fabrics that easily soak 55 liters of water. Secondly, Khadi is woven in such a way that it allows maximum air to permeate, making the fabric very comfortable, soft and breathable. And this is the problem I faced when I wore the surgical mask for the first time. So our next step was to connect with the Khadi Association there. They told us that they can make a mask for us out of pure Khadi. They also told us that they employ women's self-help groups to stitch for them. Now that conversation instantly made me happy because I couldn't believe that we were about to support these women to be self-sufficient during the lockdown when so many people in this country had already lost jobs. Now here I saw 3 concrete opportunities in this crisis. Firstly, embracing our culture and convincing people to use local products. Secondly, generating employment. And thirdly, probably the most important reason, helping the underprivileged. In order to now make these masks, I had to arrange for money. For how long would I have been dependent on my parents to help me donate masks? Which is why I came up with this fundraising campaign and raised around 1 lakh rupees in a span of 20 days with the help of my family and friends. Then I used that money to manufacture these sustainable masks. Now there came up a boulder. Transporting masks from Karnataka to Mumbai got very challenging because the state borders were shut. It was quite a helpless situation and what we could do was go with the flow and wait patiently. After getting the masks to Mumbai, we persuaded people to use Khadi for its benefits and connected to many NGOs across the country. And with the help of them, we donated masks to the Indian Army, Mumbai Police, and so many slums in Maharashtra. And then we started selling these masks, used the proceeds to donate to the underprivileged and the needy. It got a bit demotivating at times when we couldn't sell as many masks because we knew if we don't sell many masks, we won't be able to donate more. But we kept the momentum and we tried to help as much as we could. And I'm so glad that we didn't stop, because now we donate about 1,000 masks every month. As challenging as it was, it turned out to be a total success. There were obstacles and roadblocks to the journey, but the aim of helping people drove us since day one. A few months later, UN Women India recognized my work and gave me the National Runner-Up Women's Empowerment Award in the Youth Leadership category. And for me, that's a lot more than just an award. It's an evidence to everybody around the world that there are opportunities during a crisis. All you have to do is to look for them with a keen eye. My aim of sharing this story today was to tell you that there is hope in the most hopeless times. It only takes willpower and determination to make the path to your goal. Never blur your vision with a crisis. Try to help the underprivileged and the needy as much as you can. Because how are they going to survive if we don't support them? Especially in a crisis like COVID. We must look harder for opportunities, and we can only see them when we are looking for them. Thank you.
Chinmay, what you have achieved at your age is commendable, and your philanthropic mindset is a major inspiration for all of us. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful story. Now, in the final segment, taking the stage is Dr. Mickey Mehta. Dr. Mickey Mehta, the global leading holistic health guru, has completed 51 years of yoga. And within the span of his 40-year professional run, he has bagged prestigious awards like the Health and Wellness Icon by the Economic Times. In fact, he was among the 100 most impactful wellness leaders of the world, announced at the Global Wellness Conclave 2018.
Moreover, he's an author of 2 bestsellers, The Shunyam Quotient and Lose Weight, Gain Shape. In August of this year, Dr. Mickey Mehta, with Mr. Sanjeev Kapoor, will be publishing a book called Immunity Plus. Along with being a speaker at Harvard University, at IIMs, at IITs, he has been appointed as the Fit India Movement Champion by the Sports Authority of India and is a part of the steering committee at the Indian Merchant Chambers. Not only is he a columnist and a TV show host, but he is also a life coach to top Bollywood stars, to top politicians, to Indian Army personnel, and to several winners of prestigious contests like the Miss World and Miss Universe. Let us welcome this author, poet, philosopher, and much more, the legendary Dr. Mickey Mehta.
This is Dr. Mickey Mehta. We are going to be talking about the current crisis humanity is going through. Now, we all have got extra time. All of us have loads of time. Why? Because most of us are working out of home. So this extra time which I am talking about is the time we save in travel. Is the time we waste in office many times, before or after the office hours. Now this time is your opportunity to reinvent yourself, self-develop, self-culture, self-growth. So you know what? With lots of exercise, breathing, lots of meditation, lots of prayer, lots of mingling with the nature, lots of time with the family that is recreational, and of course lots of programs on television which also could be recreational, because I suggest you must watch a lot of laughter. And then singing, dancing, prancing at home. Yes, at home. So, reinvent yourself by finding your set skills, finding your hidden talents. That is the way you will absolutely be in vibrant health, in radiant health. The opportunity I'm talking about is that of a complete transformation. The opportunity I'm talking about is that of a complete transformation, and not just the body. Body, of course, because you can choose to eat well. You can choose to eat food that hums with energy, the food that calls you, beckons you. And of course, you can participate in the process of making food. Now, making food is also a great journey, a great process with family. Then exercising together, stretch together, get into a bhujangasana together, get into a mountain position together, get your right leg in the front, on your marks, get set, go, back, get your left leg in the front, on your marks, get set, go, back. And then of course, try and sleep on your back, hug yourself tight. Breathe in, breathe out, hug yourself tight. Then cycle, spot jog, twist and dance, bounce. You can literally get onto your Dunlop bed and sofas and all of you bounce. Sleep very well. Sleep like a baby and wake up like a daisy, or I would say sleep like a daisy and wake up like a baby, both ways. You know, the extra time in your hand is your blessing. So COVID has also come with a lot of bounties, boons and blessings. So much of family time, so much of bonding, so much of love, so much of compassion, so much of knowing each other, knowing your partner, knowing your children, knowing your in-laws, knowing your grandparents and parents. Can you imagine? It is a wealthy time. It is a time for health and wealth, healthy time. Recreation. For recreation, I would say that you can play games at home. For recreation, I would say you can, together play cards. For recreation, I can say you can sit and laugh together. For recreation, sometimes you can dance together. And for recreation, most importantly, just simply laugh at each other, jokes, crack jokes. It is amazing. It is truly amazing. Avoid procrastination. Avoid unnecessary procrastination of we will work out tomorrow. We will take proper sunshine from day after. It's raining today. I can understand. But early in the morning, the full family should be out near the window, doors, balconies, taking sunshine, listening to the chirping of the birds. Energy will be triggered. And thereafter, herbal teas, fruits, post-workout, of course. Sleep early so that you wake up early and you have the whole long day in your hands to play with. That becomes your playing field. And don't procrastinate. Be on the mark. But don't be aggressive about being on the mark. It should be in your awareness. Most importantly, simply enjoy it for self-love. And self-love is so important that you need to literally hug yourself, embrace yourself and hug all connected to you and be connected to all. Aham Brahmasmi is a great philosophy which says that I am that everything who is responsible for everything within and without me, inside and outside of me. I am the maker of my own destiny. So being in discipline, being creative and crisis management makes you the master of your destiny. Especially in pandemic, you should take charge. Be in charge. You have 2 legs to walk towards your destiny. You have 2 hands to make it. Okay? You have a mind to perceive it, heart to believe it, and a spirit to achieve it. The Rig Veda goes like this. We are what our deepest desires are. As are our desires, so will be our will. As will be our will, so will be our intentions. As will be our intentions, so will be our deeds. And as will be our deeds, so will be our destiny. Now, being on the mark, not procrastinating, makes you the co-creator of your own destiny, makes you the choreographer of the change which is happening every moment. Be alert, be aware about the change. Now this change will help you sail through the pandemic, sail through the crisis. Remember one thing, we are all in the turbulent ocean, but in different boats. And the boats, the sails of the boats are in your hands. There is chaos, there is disorder, there are complexities, there are problems. But breath for order is the order of the day. Each time you feel cluttered, crowded, confused, just simply shut your eyes and breathe.
Those are some very inspirational words. We truly need to make wellness our religion, and with the methods that you highlighted in your talk, we can greatly improve our lives. We would now like to call upon our very own dynamic Vice Principal, Mrs. Shubhangi Amonkar, and our Supervisor at PPSIJC, Mrs. Varsha Kusnur. Mrs. Amonkar has always encouraged student-led ventures. It was in fact her vision that sparked the initiation of this prestigious event at PPSIJC. And Mrs. Kusnur, always on her toes, is passionately involved with all activities at PPSIJC. We call you both to say a few words.
Was a dream I had envisioned for a 16 to 18-year-old getting an opportunity to organize an event of this magnitude, as it would help them own all skills required in 21st century professional life. This dream was brought to reality by my students in 2019. Then, while we decided the team and planned for the next edition, a gathering of even 120 people seemed like a far-fetched agenda. This crisis was converted into opportunity by Rishi and Krish, and they proposed having an online event. Here, I am at the culmination of this wonderful event. This wouldn't have been possible without the wholehearted support of the management of Juhu Parle Education Society. The freedom to explore and experiment, along with the experienced guidance of our CEO, Mrs. Abha Dharampal, who facilitated the successful execution of the event. A special thank you to our principal, Mrs. Rakhi Mukherjee, for her constant encouragement and valuable input.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to begin by thanking our Vice Principal and Lead Organizer, Mrs. Amonkar, for playing a pivotal role in making this event possible and successful. I would also like to express my gratitude to all our esteemed speakers who agreed to be a part of the second edition of TEDxYouth at PPSIJC and shared their invaluable words of wisdom on the theme From Crisis to Opportunity. The varied and versatile views of each and every speaker were a true testament of the theme and were indeed a treat for our ears. Moreover, this event would not have been possible but for the relentless efforts of Krish, Rishi, and the entire team who left no stone unturned in curating the event and actively contributing with their inputs, which made it a great experience. A big thank you to all our performers and hosts for their active participation. The list of gratitude will be endless, and hence I take this opportunity to thank each and every one who have helped in making this event a grand